Have you ever noticed how some individuals command the world around them without uttering a single word? It's not magic, it's the power forged through struggle. They don't need to shout or plead. They've walked through fire, embraced hardship, and sculpted themselves into something unshakable. When they withdraw, it's not weakness, it's a calculated act born from self-mastery. The air changes because those who have conquered themselves carry an aura that bends others without effort. People sense it. They begin to question, to chase, to feel the weight of a presence that was forged in difficulty. Now imagine if you did the same. What if, instead of reacting like everyone else, you embraced the harder path, the path of restraint? What if you chose silence over the comfort of immediate reaction, withdrawal over the easy explosion? That is where true strength begins. The moment you stop offering yourself, emotionally, physically, psychologically, the world trembles. For most people are slaves to their impulses, trapped in predictable cycles. They expect you to be the same, easy to read, easy to provoke. But when you dare to do the difficult thing, when you retreat into yourself, when you master your instincts, the entire game changes. Suddenly, they face the unknown, and those who believed they had power over you realize they were never even close to understanding your depths. Nietzsche said, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." When you choose the harder path, when you become distant, inaccessible, who begins to crumble? Who grows desperate? Who lashes out, seeking to pull you back into their petty dramas, just to feel they still hold power over you? It reveals nothing noble about them, but it unveils everything about your own chains. It shows how much of your life you've surrendered, unknowingly, to the hands of others. You keep offering yourself as a sacrifice, out of fear, out of weakness, to avoid conflict, to maintain fragile bonds, to keep near those who were never truly with you to begin with. And with every fake smile, every yes said against your instinct, every reaction given too easily, you carve out your own strength and hand it away like a beggar offering scraps. And what remains at the end of this exhausting ritual? Weariness, self-contempt, a deep, nameless emptiness gnawing at your core. This is not a message about turning your back on the world. It is a call to do the harder, nobler thing, to choose yourself, to walk the solitary path that Nietzsche called self-overcoming, the ruthless process of forging your own destiny, of becoming whole, real, unshakable. And this path begins the moment you understand a brutal truth. Silence, when born from strength, is mightier than 1,000 words. Withdrawal, when driven by clarity, not by fear, is not weakness. It is an act of supreme power. So now I ask you, how long will you let yourself be ruled by the moods and whims of others? How long will you dance like a puppet every time someone presses the bleeding wound you refuse to heal? Maybe it's time to look into the mirror, to accept, to become anti-fragile. Because when you stop being weak, everything changes. You have been taught to show weakness, to say it out loud, to quit, to never go above and beyond the resistance. Since childhood, you have been conditioned to believe that your worth lies in being like everyone else. But here's a truth that perhaps no one has told you with this clarity. Being weak is not a virtue. It is a flaw. And as long as you cling to the comforting lie that you must be weak all the time, you will be used, controllable, and manipulated. Do you know why? Because if you are weak, there is nothing you can do when stronger people demand it, and everything relies on power. People will use you when they need to. They will force you by authority, bribery, or brute force, and then leave you again. But you don't realize it. You think this is life, but it is an illusion of choosing the path of least resistance. You think this is the right path, and everything will work out, but it doesn't work that way. Nietzsche spoke about slave morality, a concept of values created by the weak based on fear and denial of life. And it is exactly this concept that keeps you weak. You stop because it hurts. You don't try because of comfort. You deny your duties, try to justify yourself as if the world owes you something. But the truth is, the more you deny the struggle and the hardships, the more you negate your future self. Being weak all the time is the sabotage of your future self. It is a disguised way to neglect your duties in the world, to avoid failure, to try to look good for others. But this control comes at a price, and that price is your greatness, the life you always dreamed of. It's your true potential being thrown down the drain and increasingly wasted. People who try to maintain you weak want you to make them feel superior, to make them feel better, to keep their emotional status elevated. But when you change, when you set a boundary, when you refuse to put your head down, those same people get nervous. They say you are trying to be superior, or say that you are trying to be better than everyone else. It's not because you elevate our game. It's because they don't have power over you anymore. And here's the cruelest point. The weaker you are, the more people will step in your head. Because what is easy to crush, the more people will step on to feel better. No one will feel petty over. Now stop and think, but think without mercy. As Nietzsche would demand, who truly deserves your time? Who has earned the right to your attention, your presence, your words, or better yet, who deserves your absence? But before you answer, you must face an uncomfortable truth. Why are you so quick to react? Why do you surrender so easily? Why are you driven by this almost automatic urge to explain, justify, and please? Nietzsche would tell you plainly, this isn't kindness, it's weakness disguised as virtue. It's your secret fear of being alone, of being disliked, of losing control. Your energy is all you possess in this chaotic world. If you don't have the strength to protect it, without guilt, without apology, others will drain it until there's nothing left but exhaustion and self-contempt. Nietzsche did not see the human being as a passive machine reacting to the world like a puppet. No, he saw man as something to be overcome, a chaotic storm of instincts that must be tamed, forged, and mastered. For him, every thought, emotion, and action is a battlefield where power is either gained or lost. So ask yourself with ruthless honesty, are you commanding your energy, or are you letting the world command you? Every time you react without reflection, every time you flinch at a comment, rush to explain yourself, or try to be understood by those unworthy of understanding, you are not living, you are leaking, you are wasting your inner strength on triviality. When you defend yourself against insults that should have been met with silence, when you engage in arguments just to prove you're right, when you try to win the affection of people who are blind to your worth, you are not acting from power, you are acting from need. And this need, this hunger to be seen, loved, justified, is precisely what enslaves you. Nietzsche would tell you, that which you constantly fight, you secretly serve. The more you react, the more predictable you become. The more you seek to please, the more you lose yourself. Emotional exhaustion is not weakness. It's misalignment. It is the slow suicide of the soul that has forgotten how to say no. And what becomes of the exhausted? They are not just tired, they are ripe for domination. They become prey to manipulators, to the needy, to the petty tyrants of everyday life. The world can smell when your will is unguarded. To be powerful is to contain your fire, to say no without explanation, to remain silent, not out of fear, but out of command, to observe without rushing to fix or to please. But none of this is easy. It is a daily act of war against your own softness, your own compulsions, your desire to be liked, and only those willing to face that inner chaos, to endure the discomfort of stillness and the discipline of restraint, will ever rise above the herd. How many nights have you lost to pointless rumination? How much of your life has been sacrificed on the altar of needing to be understood by those who will never understand? This is not just a call to preserve your energy. It is a challenge to reclaim your sovereignty, through hardship, through fire, through the unrelenting will to power. This is not energy being spent. This is energy being bled, wasted on ghosts that should have been buried long ago, on relationships that only survive because you keep feeding them with your reactions. You respond, and in that moment, you become predictable, you become weak, you become prey. Nietzsche would tell you, your psychic energy is your will to power. When it is protected, it becomes presence, silent, sharp, unshakable. You walk into a room and say nothing, yet the air bends. But when you scatter that energy in every direction, explaining, pleasing, reacting, you dissolve. You become invisible, hollow, a surface others paint their projections on. And the world has no pity for the weak-willed. It only respects those who have done the hard thing, to govern themselves. So begin the real work, the painful, necessary work of watching yourself. What triggers make you flinch? What situations steal your center before you even notice? These are not minor flaws. They are cracks in your fortress, And they are the very places where manipulators enter, not with force, but with subtlety. They don't need to fight you, they just press what you've left exposed, and you react like a puppet. Jung called this projection. Nietzsche would call it self-abandonment, because the truth is, you are not being loved, you are being used. Not seen for who you are, but for the role you refuse to stop playing. That friend who only calls in crisis. That partner who needs you to carry their emotions. That person who flatters you so long as you remain useful. They are not relating to you. They are relating to a mask, an image you agreed to wear, because the truth is hard. You are afraid. Afraid of disappointing. Afraid of being unloved. Afraid of being alone. Nietzsche would say, then suffer. Suffer until you are strong enough to stop begging for crumbs of affection. Suffer until you are willing to lose everything that is false, so you can build something real. Only when you stop fearing abandonment will you stop abandoning yourself. The most insidious form of manipulation does not arrive with violence or noise. It seeps in through guilt, quiet, invisible, corrosive. It whispers that you owe yourself to others, that you must stay available, that you must help, understand, explain, even when it hollows you out. But here lies Nietzsche's razor. The manipulator doesn't need to overpower you, they only need you to keep reacting. As long as you keep playing the same emotional notes, the music of your submission continues. But when you refuse to play, when you choose silence over justification, withdrawal over explanation, no over appeasement, the entire theater collapses. The mask they placed on you no longer fits, and that terrifies them, because now they must face the one thing they've avoided all along, themselves. Your unavailability becomes a mirror too sharp to look into, your silence, a void that echoes their own emptiness. And that's when the backlash begins, the attacks, the guilt trips, the emotional performances, not because you've done wrong, but because you've stopped playing the role they cast you in. Nietzsche would say, this is the moment of real power. You have stopped being a servant, you have stepped out of the herd, and now, simply by not reacting, you force others to feel their own abyss. Jung spoke of the shadow, but Nietzsche would go further. True strength is forged when you can stare into the darkness, yours and theirs, and not flinch. So let the storm come. Let them rage, because the more you withdraw, the more the illusion dies. And in that death, you are reborn, not as a reflection, but as something sovereign, untouchable, and real. But now let us speak of you. Are you ready for the hardest task of all? To be misunderstood, without rushing to explain. To be rejected, without begging to belong. To be attacked, without collapsing into apology. Because only those who dare to endure this discomfort, this sacred isolation, will ever touch real strength. Nietzsche would say, your power begins exactly where your need to be liked ends. And here, in the silence that follows rupture, something new is born. Not weakness, not emptiness, but presence, sharp, dangerous, sovereign. This is not the silence of cowards. It is the silence of one who has ceased to be a servant. The modern world is addicted to noise. Everyone clamors to be heard, to argue, to win debates that mean nothing, to prove points that hollow them out inside. But there exists a weapon too sharp for most to wield, the power of silence. Not absence, but dominance through withdrawal. A silence that says, I no longer play your game. Nietzsche would not call this passivity, he would call it warfare by refusal. It is the strategic silence of one who sees the cycle, the manipulation, the ego trap, and chooses not to dance. Because to react is to obey, to explain is to kneel. Have you noticed their panic when you say nothing? When you do not explain yourself? When you simply vanish? It is not love that shakes them, it is the collapse of control. While you speak, they still hold the narrative, but when you fall silent, you break the script. And nothing terrifies the manipulator more than a character who stops following the script. True silence is not emptiness. It is mastery over your energy. It is the refusal to let your worth be decided by how others feel. It is the hard, noble decision to walk away from battles that diminish you. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, becoming who you truly are. Nietzsche would say, to do that, you must destroy the mask, and silence is the fire that burns it. But do not be deceived. Silence is not without cost. It will strip away those who only loved your obedience. It will offend those who needed you to stay small. It will disturb those who never looked at you, only at their projection of you. And that is exactly why it is necessary. Because you were not born to serve their comfort. You were born to rise, alone if needed, misunderstood if necessary, but free. Let the herd call it arrogance. Let them call it coldness. You will know it for what it is, the courage to be untouchable. And here is the hard truth. The more you evolve, the more disciplined you must become with your words. Not out of fear, but out of strength. Nietzsche understood that power is not shown through constant expression, but through restraint. Each sentence is a projection of your energy, an extension of your will, and not everyone is worthy of it. Silence, then, is not weakness. It is a form of domination over oneself. It is the posture of one who no longer seeks validation, but chooses to stand alone, because they have learned that truth does not beg to be heard. Silence is difficult. That's why it's powerful. It confronts others with their own chaos and reveals their dependency on your reactions. You owe no one an explanation for your withdrawal. Your absence speaks with more force than your presence ever did, because now it is intentional, and those who feel disturbed by it only reveal how much they relied on your former lack of boundaries to maintain their illusions of control. But the most transformative silence is not the one that unsettles others. It's the one that reshapes you. The one that demands solitude, confrontation with your inner abyss, and a reorientation of your desires. In that space, you reclaim your energy, not to retreat from life, but to re-enter it with precision. It's not enough to block out noise. You must learn to wield your energy like a blade. Choose where it cuts, where it protects, and where it refuses to act altogether. This is the path of self-mastery. This is the will to power in motion. Because understanding without action is cowardice, dressed as awareness. The real transformation begins when you take control of your instincts, not by suppressing them, but by training them. You stop explaining. You stop apologizing for your standards. You begin to choose your soul over comfort. True strength is not loud. It is selective. It breathes before speaking. It exits before being pulled into nonsense. It disconnects without guilt. It says, not today, not for you, not anymore. This is not cruelty. This is becoming who you were meant to be, regardless of who it offends. But here's the most important part. You do not need to justify your absence. You do not need to explain your silence. You owe nothing to anyone but yourself. And for many, that is unforgivable. Because the moment you stop explaining, you strip others of their power to trap you in a story where you are forever the agreeable, available, self-sacrificing one. Nietzsche would call this a refusal to play the role of the tamed spirit. The one who begins to master himself must withdraw from the herd, not out of despair, but out of necessity. True growth demands separation, not a depressive isolation, but a sacred solitude, a crucible where the weak parts of the self are burned away, and what remains is forged anew by your own will. Do you want a real test of your evolution? Watch who grows distant when you grow quiet. Watch who feels threatened when you stop reacting. Watch who accuses you of changing when you finally start protecting your inner world. These are not signs you've gone astray. They are signs you've begun to break free. Being unavailable at first feels like guilt. You'll hear that you're being selfish, cold, too harsh. But this is the resistance every free spirit must face. You were trained to place yourself last. Now, the discomfort you feel is the echo of a former self dying, and those who fed off that version of you will protest. But this discomfort is sacred. It means you've begun the climb. Conscious unavailability is not arrogance, it's sovereignty. Every no to the world becomes a deeper yes to yourself. Walking away from toxic chaos is not escape, it's rebellion. And when you stop explaining, people may not like it, but they will start to respect you, because power does not beg for understanding. Not everyone can endure this presence. Your silence will expose wounds they never wanted to face. Your distance will show how much they relied on your self-abandonment to feel strong. And this is when the rupture comes. With it, the pain, the loneliness, the grief of shedding your skin. You'll feel as if something is being lost, when in truth, something is finally being reclaimed. So what comes after that? What is born from this silence? In the final part, we will speak of that. The rebirth that only happens when you have the courage to be misunderstood, the strength to walk alone, and the will to become whole by your own hand. It's time to face what most avoid. The loneliness of the strong is not a curse. It is the crucible of true freedom. When you stop making yourself available to everyone, the first thing you'll feel is the weight of silence. Not peace, not clarity, but an inner scream, the resistance of a self still clinging to comfort. You will question yourself. Doubt will whisper that you're being too harsh, that you're losing people who once praised your kindness. But these are echoes of your weaker self, fragments of a life where you betrayed yourself just to belong. Nietzsche understood, to become who you truly are, you must first walk alone. This solitude is not emptiness, it is the full presence of your will. The solitude of one who no longer dilutes their truth to remain loved. This is not retreat, this is resurrection. And as the noise dies, clarity rises. Where anxiety once ruled, stillness enters. Where you once begged for affection, strength now lives. A strength that no longer asks for permission to exist. Jung spoke of individuation. Nietzsche went further. Only by separating yourself from the herd can you transcend it. To break away from the collective, from the masks, from the comfort of mediocrity, is painful, but necessary. It is the path of those who choose greatness over acceptance. To become unavailable is not to reject the world, it is to reclaim yourself. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop bending and begin forging. You become the hammer, not the anvil. Those who now find you distant were never drawn to your essence. They were attached to the version of you that served their comfort. And when that version dies, they leave. Let them. Because in that loss, you find yourself. In the distance, you return to your essence. In the misunderstanding, you earn something far greater than popularity, self-respect. And here lies the paradox of power. The moment you stop being available to everything, you become irreplaceable, rare, untouchable. Do not mistake this for an end. This is a beginning, a violent, beautiful rebirth. A new chapter where you no longer feed on emotional crumbs, no longer play games to feel seen. Now, you only allow what aligns with your truth, your peace, your strength. And if you've made it this far, it's because something in you is already shifting. Some deeper instinct is awakening, the will to choose yourself even if the world turns away. So I ask you, are you ready to be misunderstood, to be rejected, to be hated even, if that is the cost of your inner freedom? Are you ready to become rare? If this truth spoke to you, if it cut through the noise, comment below. I choose my peace. Let's see how many here are ready to leave the herd and walk the path of the sovereign. And don't stop now. The next video is not a continuation. It is a deeper descent into the fire that transforms. I'll see you there.